And that was the thing. I told him one day, I'm like, yo, I sent him these, like, the prop claws that they make that you basically put them, like, here and they go like this. And I sent him, I'm like, yo, check this out. Like, you can get, like, Wolverine Claws. Because we would be hanging out and I would just always go like this. Like, when we would be, like, talking. And everybody would always say this, like, why do you do Wolverine Claws all the time? And I would just be like, ask anybody here, too, in the office. Those things that hold up the cards.
Yeah.
I put them on and I'm like, and I, like, wear them like they're Wolverine. Like, I used to be obsessed with just, like, the claws coming out of my fists all the time.
Pegwarmers is the code name for toys and collectibles with high supply and low demand. Join Kevin and his team of collector commandos as they discuss popular and not so popular retro and current toy brands.
Welcome to Pegwarmers. I'm Kevin.
I'm Kieran.
And we're here to talk about toys. Welcome, Kieran.
Hey, how you doing?
How are things going on the Cinemassare Podcast?
It's been good. We just shot a few episodes. We're right after Too Many Games, so this is the first podcast I'm going to have full energy for, pretty much though, because I've been beat.
Yeah, Too Many Games is intense. It's a long weekend.
I forgot. Honestly, it's been such a long time since I've been to a convention and since I've been to Too Many Games, and Too Many Games is the most I would say, like, strenuous of the conventions, but just because I work.
Yeah, you do so much setup, tear down kind of stuff. Exactly. It's like getting ready for it is more than just like attending a con for the whole weekend.
Exactly. And it's also the most fun I ever have at a convention, bar none. It's so good. And it's really fun that it was back, and I'm just glad it was just a good time.
It was
overall.
A great time.
Like,
I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's been weird not having shows, and it was weird having Too Many Games in October.
Yeah.
But
it was still humid.
Yes.
So it didn't matter. It was the same kind of weather you get. It's just not.
You just didn't die walking to the car or walking to the hotel?
It wasn't like 100 degrees. It was like 78, but it was humid on Saturday and gross. And everybody was sweating it up, and it was nice.
Yeah, Friday when they like when the show opened, because I worked at registration and I'm like signing people in, and the AC is like off in the beginning because of like load in,
bringing in the cars and everything.
For it to finally cool down, it was roasting then. So I was like, oh, I hope I don't smell.
That's the thing. And I was wearing this, like, I had a sweatshirt on and a vest, and I know everybody was like, how do you wear the vest and everything? And it's like, well, it's always. It never covers my sleeves, but I couldn't do the sweatshirt. And I was pretty sad because I'm really digging my sweatshirt and vest combo that I've been doing recently.
Awesome. So in the news segment, the Nancel Company, which most people would know from the Toy Store Near You, the Toys That Made Us, the movies that made us, there's a like Netflix series.
Yeah.
They acquired Mark's Toys, and Mark's Toys is a company that's kind of faded out of popularity. They went bankrupt in the 80s, but they were known for like Big Wheels and Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
Oh, okay.
There's this monster, the Great Garloo, that was like a standalone toy.
Yeah.
But it was like this amazing monster toy back in the day. So they've bought that, and I've been watching them buy up a lot of these kind of sort of forgotten brands. They bought Roboforce, which was like suction cup robots.
Yeah, those were the ones that were like, they came out and then Transformers came out, and it was like, who wants this
it was
thing?
like
they had those arms that were like the crackly kind of things that was like when you put them out.
So they were totally like a 50s aesthetic.
Yeah.
And then Star Wars hit, and it was like, oh, robots can be cooler than this. Yeah. So they bought that, and they bought a few other things, or they're involved in other things. Like they're going to do a Silverhawks show.
Oh, that's kind of cool. I love it. Silverhawks has, I think, the best of those theme songs. Like, I know everybody talks about like Transformers and Thundercats.
Mask is pretty good.
Mask is good too, yeah. But I think the Silverhawks thing with that guitar solo.
I love that he actually is playing it, like bluegrass.
Bluegrass.
Because usually you don't have people playing instruments in the opening because the characters aren't musicians. Mm-hmm. But it works so well in that.
All of those shows had such awesome intro. Like it was a lot like Thundercats, but I think. It wasn't Bluegrass was voiced by the guy who's Lion-O, I believe.
Yeah, Larry Kenny. Yep.
But their theme song, that's one of the best.
Yeah.
By far.
All right, so new to the collection is our next section. What'd you bring for us?
All right, so I have a couple things. I talked the last time I was on, I talked about my Batmobile collection, so I brought my newest ones that I have. And I'm going to show you the first ones are the newest line that's out right now. These are the, I believe they're I forget what it is, 166th, I think, is the tiny cars.
Okay.
these are like 1/50th or something. They're a little bit bigger. They cost about $8 at Target, depending on if you're buying them there.
Okay.
But the first two I got are from the newest line, and they're my favorites of the newest line. The rest of these ones I'm just collecting for completion. But we got the 1940s Batmobile and the 1980s Super Friends Batmobile.
Nice.
Which I love the 1980s one. The 40s one is pretty cool too. It's that old school one with the
this one is pretty iconic with that giant fin and the bat face
and
on
the
it.
Face on the
it's
front.
kind of hokey, but it just is so classic early comics.
And they kind of came out of nowhere because I was just finished collecting the last line of them, and I got the whole line of them. And then I saw these sitting, I check out Target, and I'm always like, let me see if they got anything. And they had these, and I have the other one of this. The last line had just the original Super Friends Batmobile. So I got that too. But this one is the one I really like.
Yeah, that's awesome.
They even this is the one that they made a bigger toy of too. I believe ToyBiz made.
Kenner.
Kenner did?
Kenner for superpowers, yeah.
That's
awesome, though.
And then now I have a couple grails and they're not like super rare, but they're ones that took me a minute to get because I had to get them on eBay. It's a bit more expensive when you buy them on eBay. You're not going to pay $8.
Right.
But these are two that I've wanted for a really long time since I started collecting these. One is the animated series,
which is most people's
It's my favorite.
First or second favorite. It's just so good.
It's definitely, I know a lot of, it's either this or the 89 or the 66. Those are the main three, but this is definitely by far my favorite.
And the animated series one is the 89 one minus like the turbine on the front, basically. They
made
simplified
it easier to draw and everything, yeah. And it's like that Art Deco that everything was in.
And the matte black that it always is, because almost all the other Batmobiles are gloss black.
Yep.
And that Batmobile is usually matte.
And
cool.
that one came out like 2 or 3 lines ago, and that was this was when I was early in my infancy of collecting Batmobiles. I didn't care about these ones.
Okay.
And it was more because I was like, I don't want to spend more money. I'd rather just get the 98 cents Batmobiles. I don't feel like. And then Marshall got me.
Yeah.
He was like, you should get them. Blah, blah, blah. And I think my other friend Camille, she bought me one because she's like, oh, you're collecting Batmobiles. I got you one. And I'm like, I'm not collecting these ones though.
Now you have peer pressure.
And she was like, and then I was like, now I'm gonna have to start collecting all these. And then now I drop, anytime I see them, I drop money on them. But this one, I had to pay into a little bit. It wasn't too much. It was, I think, $20 after everything, after shipping and stuff. But it is the Batman Forever Batmobile. And this one, they even have like more too. Like they have this one. After I saw this too, I was like, I have to find a couple of these. Like Batman and Robin Batmobile is like $40.
Wow.
Yeah, but this one, these ones came out. When was it? 2010. So this one came out but it's the Batman Forever. I got it because it has the green logo. They also make another one. It's the same one, but it's got the question mark.
Oh, okay.
I could do that, but I'm kind of trying to stay away from going, well, now I need to do the package variants because I'm like,
it gets ridiculous.
Yeah, and there's a few of them that I have, like I have some of the first Hot Wheels Batmobiles that came out in 2004, and I have them in the original one, but then they re-released them in package variants, and I have some of the first editions, 2 of them, and then I have 2 of the other first editions not in the same packaging, but they're like a couple years later they came out, they just re-release them. But I'm like, maybe I oughta. I don't know.
Package variants and repaints get kind of annoying when you're collecting because it's the same amount of money as the original one.
Yep.
Or more. And you're not really getting anything new in your collection.
No.
So it's like,
especially when you commit to collecting repaints.
Yeah.
And then another repaint comes out, but not only...
just keep using that mold.
Yeah, like there's one that came out, it was the 2019 Batmobile, and it's just kind of a generic like Batmobile that Hot Wheels designed, I guess, and there's like 5 colors. There's like a gray, there's a gold, gold glossy paint, there's blue, there's a silvery glossy paint, and then there's some other color. I can't remember what it is, but I got all of them.
Okay.
And then they release a black one with yellow wheels that comes in a Batman packaging. And it's a Walmart exclusive, and I was just like, oh my God, now I have to go and find it. And I can't find them at any Walmart, so I'm probably gonna have to buy the whole pack. And
the repaints make total sense to the toy company because it's basically low overhead money. They pay somebody to design a new package and a new paint scheme, and they just roll it out. They've already got the mold. So I totally get why they do it. And for most kids, like, it's just important to keep those, like, classic things on the shelf to get kids into it. But it's rough sometimes when you're collecting and you're like, oh, this is like the third version of this I have, or the fifth version of this that I have.
There's certain ones like I don't care too much about too, like the Tumbler. I like the Tumbler, but I'm not like, it's not my favorite Batmobile, so I have one.
Okay.
But it's like there's 100 paints of the Tumbler, and then I have like the Arkham City. Or no, Arkham Knight, sorry. Okay. And then I have the Arkham Asylum one, and then there's a whole bunch of those. So it's like, then I have also too like the Brave and the Bold. They have the regular one of that, but then they have the Scooby-Doo variant. So it's like the Mystery Machine color. That's actually probably
kind of
my favorite of all the like small ones I got. But I have one of every single model, like mold.
Okay.
And just not every repaint, but I have one of each one that's been released. Even like I have a color changing 89. I have the hard nose 89, which is like the front of it's like really weirdly distorted and big.
Okay.
But it's the 89 one, but it looks like a cartoony weird thing. Like there's a lot of Batmobiles.
There are.
I collect all those, and only Hot Wheels. I will not branch off to another company.
Okay.
I don't care about any other die-cast Batmobiles. Don't give a crap. I'm only going with these ones.
You're a Mattel man.
Mattel, yeah. Specific.
So, yeah, all right. I'm going to hold the thought for a second.
Okay.
Our next segment is Pegwarmer. And I wanted to tie into our theme here, which if you didn't notice is 90s X-Men.
Yes.
And I brought with me a Rogue figure who's actually been on our set for a little while here. I did not buy any of the X1 movie toys when they came out. I don't think anybody bought any of them because I saw them all in clearance bins.
I bought them all.
You bought them all.
Every single one on clearance because of that.
Yes, well, that's when I bought them. So I got Sabretooth, I got Professor X, and I got Rogue on clearance. I don't know if they had the other characters.
Oh, while you were there?
When I was there.
Okay.
But so I was in a point in my life where I was in like getting out of high school, going into college, but I was really actively doing stop motion animation. I did these stop motion animation things for my college cable
you
channels.
showed me them. They're awesome.
Yeah. So we were always looking for like civilian people, and Professor X is a guy in a suit.
Oh, yeah, the Professor X figure, yeah.
Yes.
It was just Patrick Stewart.
It was just Patrick Stewart in a suit. So I bought a couple of him. I bought this Rogue figure because I painted over her gloves, and then she just looks like a teenager.
Yep.
And the Sabretooth, I think I just bought him because he just kind of looked ferocious. Because it's not... I mean, in that movie, it's kind of like a Wolfman character.
Pretty much.
So I just bought it because I thought he was kind of neat. And he came with a police officer that, like, when he punched him, the guy would collapse, which, again, I was, like, looking for civilians, and it was like, oh, it's just a generic police officer. So that was the reason why I bought those ones and not, like, Jean Grey or Wolverine or whatever. I was just looking at, like, how else could I use these figures? But yeah, so I painted over her arms, and I used her in an animation one time, and she's just been hanging out in the set. But I figured we should talk about those ToyBiz X-Men figures.
Yeah.
So did you have the complete line?
I had everybody because one X-Men one is one of my favorite movies.
I really enjoy it.
It's it blew my mind when it was coming out. When I first saw and I've told this before. I think I've said it on what else we were doing, rental reviews or Cinemassare Podcast, whatever it was. They had the standee at the movie theaters, and this was I didn't have I wasn't looking up movies on the internet. The only way that you found out about a movie coming out was if you saw another movie and saw the trailer, So I saw the X-Men standing, and it had no words on it. It just said the date, and it was the big X in a circle. And I was like, holy crap, are they making it? They're making an X-Men movie? Like, I was freaking out for a year until it came out. Saw it in theaters, day one, saw it at the very first showing. They weren't doing midnight showings at this theater or anything like that. That was like a later thing. I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like X-Men was part of that like push for the nerd movies to finally be the blockbusters that they could be and like do the midnight releases and stuff for Star Wars and Harry Potter.
I never thought I'd see an X-Men movie. Like I can understand Batman because Batman or Superman or whatever, but X-Men was something that I felt like was very. I know it's been around for a while, but it was super 90s and it was super like Saturday morning a kid show.
The team dynamic also seemed like a reason not to do it. Like the studios understand how to do a Superman. We have Superman and we have a villain, and we're gonna have a plot, and we're gonna have Batman and a villain, and we're gonna have a plot. And every time they would add extra villains, the quality would start to go down. And so it was like, can they make a good movie with a team fighting another team, which is kind of how X-Men always is. And now they've kind of mastered that at this point. But that was so unique at the time.
This is also at a point in life where you would never have even thought to ever see a Sega character on a Nintendo system or anything like that. Sonic, the Dreamcast was still somewhat going strong. The PlayStation 2 wasn't out yet. Stuff like that wasn't mainstream. X-Men became a mainstream thing because of this movie.
Correct.
And like everyone was on Conan afterwards. I was a huge Conan O'Brien fan, so every night they were all on Conan, every single person, and they all came out with their action figure.
Oh, nice.
And they showed their action figure, and Conan would have it sitting on the desk and everything. And I wanted the action figures so bad. They were like $10. They were expensive because they were bigger.
I paid like $1.99.
Me too. So I used to. This was back in. I'm derailing because I love these figures. I love the X-Men and stuff, but they're
some were better than others.
Yeah, the Wolverine one kind of sucked because his claws were floppy.
Yeah, they
bent all the time. Jean Grey was actually one of the cooler figures. Cyclops wasn't bad. The only one I didn't get was the one where you can. It's Wolverine stabbing Rogue.
Okay.
I didn't get that because it was more, and I didn't want. I would rather get this than get that because also too the Wolverine figure was kind of lame.
Yeah,
it wasn't really a good one, and I forget who it was, but one of them came with Senator Kelly.
Was that the Mystique figure? Maybe was there a Mystique figure?
No, it wasn't Mystique, and there was, and she just Mystique's figure was weird because she was just like this all the time, like she barely moved.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, she stayed in a weird pose, and most of the other figures like Wolverine was super. Wasn't like super articulated, but he could kick and punch.
They had decent
and all that.
Yeah.
I think it might have been Jean Grey. She came with this weird beanbag, gross-looking Senator
like the
Kelly.
slimy.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
It's when he's like mutated.
Yeah,
and it exploded everywhere because I thought it was like a Stretch Armstrong kind of thing. I shot beans all over my grandma's like living room. It was bad.
I gotta find that now. I don't think I realized that was like a pack and accessory.
To be honest, most of them probably got destroyed.
They probably did disintegrate, but I remember the really weird like gene in like slime that came with Cyclops.
Yep.
That was bizarre.
Yeah, because that was from the scene when she.
Right.
So that was the one thing I was like, in the movie she just gets it on her mouth, but I guess apparently the action figure they make it covering her entire
they
like.
Probably just figured it was more exciting.
Yeah, I don't know. It was weird, but it was
Or maybe a lot of times toys are made based on a script. And so maybe the script just said she's encased in.
Yeah, that's true.
And then when they went to do it, they're like, we're not going to put her whole body in a thing. We're just going to,
But then I guess they kind of like learned their lesson because then when X-Men 2 came out, they never made... I don't think they made figures for X-Men 2.
I don't know. I definitely have a movie Colossus figure, but I'm not sure whether that's from X2 or X3.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I never really collected the movie figures because I just am obsessed with like the 90s costumes. So like the ToyBiz ones or like a Marvel Legends in those like Jim Lee era costumes or the cartoon era costumes. I'm just a sucker for that.
That was a big line I collected too, was those like the Marvel Legends ones.
Yeah.
The ones that were or it was
the Marvel Universe, the little guys,
because they went with the G.I. Joe 25th.
Yep.
So you could mix and match. Like you could make it like, Magneto's working with Cobra or whatever, stuff like that.
All right, so our main topic is ToyBiz X-Men, which was a huge line. It came out at just the right time. Like, X-Men was being relaunched, and it was being supported in every way.
Yeah.
It had a new comic, had a toy line, it had a cartoon. The toys actually, like, had a subscription thing on the back. So, actually, I subscribed to... X-Men, I think 2 years in a row from the back of the package. Like, that was how I got those comics, and it was just so perfect, as a kid. I had a friend in elementary school who was obsessed with the X-Men right before this hit. He would always be talking about Wolverine. He was always drawing comics. And so he kind of introduced me to it, and then I guess the show dropped. I don't know the exact dates, but 99% sure I watched the premiere the day it came out. Like, I remember watching the show and being like, whoa, this is amazing.
Yeah, I don't know when... I remember the toys first.
And that's what I can't keep... I'm not sure, because I don't think I had any toys until I saw the show.
Yeah.
But they may have come out first.
They were $5, and I had to save up, like, money. I had to do, like I had to save up for, like, 2 weeks, because my mom gave me, like, $1 a week or whatever. Like, or no, it wasn't, like... No, the math doesn't match up. It was, like, I would get, like, $1, but I would get, like, other stuff here and there, like, from other people. Like, I was selling things. I was going door to door selling trading cards, which when I think about it, like, at the time, I was like, oh, yeah, I'll sell my trading cards. Let me pop them in a thing. And I was going to my neighbors, like, some of my neighbors were like old people.
They were probably just like,
and they're probably they would like, oh yeah, here's a quarter, give me that like whatever that is, like, and I would give them like, you know, a Ghost Rider card or something like that, and like I saved up like so hard. I remember my sister just had this big thing of change for no reason, and I was like to my sister, I'm like, please, like, let me borrow some change. So I'm like putting it together, and I had to have my mom count it for me because like I don't know what coins and all that stuff. This is the first time I ever in my life put money together so I can get it, and I got the figure you have, I believe, standing over here.
Wolverine.
It was a Wolverine. Okay, yeah, the pop-out claws, which is also here. And I had no other...
You might want to grab him. I don't even know if he's in the shot. There he is.
So
Brown suit Wolverine. It's a classic.
This is the first figure I bought myself in my entire life. I saved up for this figure. It wasn't a gift. And I was like, so just, I couldn't, like, oh my God, I love this action figure so much.
And I didn't even mention the other thing that supports them is they all had the trading card. I saw it when you were holding it there.
Yep.
That trading card was huge because most of the time I got the character that was in the package. Like, I got their card. And you learned so much between the little bio on the back and then the file card.
And it's
the trading card.
The Impel. Who did the G.I. Joe, which I got the full thing of the G.I. Joe collection.
So I noticed in this Archangel, though, I have a Wolverine trading card. But
oh yeah,
when I got Wave 1 of these guys, and this was the first toy line where I felt like a toy collector, because it was the first time I owned an entire wave. Like, before the next wave came out. Like, I eventually had all the Wave 1 Ninja Turtle stuff, but I, like, systematically crossed these things off. I remember Apocalypse being the last one I got. I found him at a comic store that I don't even think exists anymore. Comics Adaptation in Quakertown, Pennsylvania. Oh, yeah. But I was, like, checking them off as I went, and it was cool because every single one I bought had the correct card. Now, I don't know whether they were just randomly throwing cards in the factory and I lucked out, or they would put them in correct unless they ran out or something. Because this Archangel one, like I said, has a Wolverine card in there. But that was such a great way to really sell you on the toy once you had it in the package. Because a lot of the X-Men, if they weren't on the show, which the first wave was pretty much on the show, but once you hit wave 2 of the line, there were so many figures that you couldn't possibly know who everybody was. Or even if they were only in one episode, you still didn't know a lot about them. So having that card that told you, like, what his power was, what his real name was, that was amazing. It really did help.
And that was the thing, too, is this was at a point, too, where, you know, Wolverine's claws were such a, like, up-in-the-air kind of thing. Like, why does he have the claws? Are they his power kind of stuff? Eventually, they did, like, you know, he has... Because Magneto tore all of the adamantium from his skin, from his bones, like, liquefied it and pulled it through his pores. And they found out, oh, he has claws.
Right.
But they're bones, but they grafted the adamantium to him. Because the whole thing is, too, like, Wolverine doesn't know anything about himself, which is also a great plot device. Because you can just make up anything you want about Wolverine.
Well, this was kind of in the era where Sabretooth kept telling Wolverine that he was his father. Do you remember that? Like, that was, like, a thing when I was a kid.
In the comic books? Or
in the comics. Oh, like, so nobody knew, like... no one trusted Sabretooth, but, like, Sabretooth was always, like, you know, telling Wolverine these things that would conflict him.
At the time, honestly, my whole introduction was, I didn't start reading comics until, I would say, like, way later, probably, like, when I was in high school. And by that time, it wasn't even the same anymore. It was, like, the Ultimate lines were out and all that stuff. And when I do read comics, I usually read Batman. When it came to Marvel, all my knowledge of Marvel and the characters are from all the cartoons.
Yeah.
I watched everything. Like, I loved the Spider-Man 90s cartoon.
Oh, yeah. That's great.
Because it had the X-Men, it had Iron Man. Everybody was in it. It was like a huge crossover show. The X-Men was my first real introduction into Marvel, other than like the Incredible Hulk, like the 70s show. I watched that because it was on TV, but I didn't know that he was a superhero. I knew him from the TV show, you know, and Spider-Man.
Right.
Because every kid knows Spider-Man.
Spider-Man and Superman are just, you somehow just know who they are when you're a kid.
You know, and X-Men was the first, like, when I first watched it, it's dark.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually kind of disturbing to watch. Like, the first episode is where Morph, like, pretty much, he dies without them saying completely, like, he's dead.
Right.
But he's dead. Like, there's the part where, like,
Morph.
Yeah, there is. With the Sentinel kills him. And Xavier, the way they do it too is actually pretty cool. Where it's like Xavier knows it happens, and he's like, "I feel nothing," and it's like he knows he's like gone. And I was like, "He's dead," and like, is Beast dead? Because and all that. And then the thing is, then it's to be continued,
right?
And I was like, "Wait, what?" Like,
it was very dramatic.
Yeah,
I mean, it just says so much though for not only the people that did the cartoon, but for like Chris Claremont and these people that created the stories in the comics that inspired the cartoon. Because a lot of the cartoon is just sort of retelling of classic issues of the comic.
It was very adult for kids. It made me feel like a big kid watching it, you know? It was one of those shows where I was like nervous if my mom walked downstairs and saw me watching the show, she wouldn't let me watch this show anymore.
I gotcha.
You know? Like, she was... As people might know, my mom was not... She was one of those moms that, like, when she saw things on the news about whatever being too violent, it was always like, you know, I'm going to watch this with you and I'm going to judge. And then you have to sit there and watch X-Men with your mom and hope to God she doesn't find it too violent. And you're just, it's like, you're just like, it's awful. It's one of the most awkward feelings you could ever have.
I know that well.
Yeah.
So this line had, we were talking about repaints earlier, and I just said I was going to hold my thought. This line had a lot of repaints.
Oh, yeah.
Once they had the molds, they would reuse them. In fact, I have like a black and a silver Storm here. The black Storm came out in the beginning of the line, which looked like her outfit in the comics.
Yeah.
But the silver Storm was the costume in the show, so they redid her. And then also I have Rogue and Polaris standing next to each other. Polaris has the green hair. Yep. It's the same figure. It's the exact same figure.
Also, even later, they did it a ton. There's a figure of Psylocke that they used for, what was it? They used the same figure for Psylocke as they did for Elektra.
Okay.
And for a couple other characters, I believe, too. There's a Jean Grey. There's like a Phoenix character that they used for other characters and things like that. They also made like 5 or 6 Phoenixes that had the light up hair and stuff like that.
Yes. So I often relate Wolverine to Snake Eyes, another comic character that I love, where this character was so good because you didn't know a lot about them, and you got things in little trickles.
Yep.
Like over the arc of the G.I. Joe comics, you found out what Snake Eyes looked like, and you found out what happened to his family, and you found out how he got trained. And Wolverine was very much the same, and I don't mean to say that anybody stole ideas from each other or anything like that, but they are both characters that have like ninja training and that kind of thing. But that was one of the things that was so cool. Like as a kid is like you're so curious about this character because you just don't know anything about it. And then with Wolverine having the amnesia and kind of with Snake Eyes not being able to talk, you never really knew if things were true because it was like never coming from the character.
You could make things up as you went and whatever. It's canon now, you know? That's the thing that's kind of cool about them is that their stories are so interesting because you could do whatever you want. It was like a blank slate. Even though these guys created them, like, you know what? Wolverine's first thing was fighting the Hulk.
Right, and he was supposed to be a teenager.
Yeah, and he was also supposed to be a Wolverine that mutated into a human was one of the other ideas about him, you know?
So there was a kid that went to my church when I was a kid who was like sort of my comic guru growing up. He had an amazing comic book collection. He was a little bit older than me, and he had Wolverine's first appearance. He had Weapon X #1. Wow. Like, he had all these key issues. He was obsessed with Wolverine. And so that's actually where I learned a lot of the backstory to these guys. So I would watch the cartoon. He and I would, every Sunday at church, talk about the episode from the day before. But he would also be telling me, like, all this stuff from the comics that he had read previously. And then at that point, like I said, I subscribed to the comic, and I started getting them for about 2 years. I had subscribed to X-Men, and I got a subscription to Spider-Man in that era. My first issue of Spider-Man to come in the mail on my subscription was the hologram 30th anniversary cover.
Oh,
like when they did special
yeah.
And I was like, this is amazing. Like, it was just such a fancy like issue to get as a kid in the mail for the subscription that I was like blown away by it.
I got super into like Wolverine was just the one. I don't know why I was so drawn to Wolverine as a kid, but and everybody always asks like what your favorite superhero is, and I would say I have a huge Batman collection. I don't have a Wolverine collection because I don't like Wolverine figures most of the time. I don't think they've made a good modern Wolverine figure that I can like.
It's really hard to sculpt a character like that. His mask doesn't work well in 3D, which I think is why they've kind of stayed away from it in the movies. It's hard to make toy claws that don't get ruined,
all bent and messed up. Yeah,
I mean, I have a Marvel Legends one that like just looks ridiculous. Like one claw is at a weird angle from the other ones.
There was a Marvel Universe one that was like Legendary Wolverine or something. No, I forget what it was. It was like it was a later release, but it looked awesome. It was really cool, and I ended up selling mine because I'd actually had a mess up. They put two of the right-sided biceps on each arm, so his arm wouldn't bend right. So I was kind of upset about that, but I don't have a big Wolverine collection because they don't like Batman. They make a million things of it, and you can collect it easy. I just don't think other than these figures that they have like really, really decent Wolverine figures. But I do have like comics and other things like that. Like I do have Wolverine stuff, just not figures. But when I was in college, my buddy G from college, who was one of my roommates back in the day, and he also has a podcast, the Rated G podcast, and which I've been on a couple times. But
all right,
he what's it called? Me and him used to just play the Wolverine video game, and he had like every comic. He is probably the biggest Wolverine fan. He cosplayed as what's his name? What's Wolverine's name when he goes to Japan? He wears the suit and Patch.
Yeah.
He did a Patch cosplay, and he's like he's basically built like Wolverine.
Okay.
Like what comic book Wolverine is. He is built like him, and he looked the part, and he had the claws, and that was the thing. I told him one day, I'm like, "Yo," I sent him these like the prop claws that they make that you basically put them like here, and they go like this, and I sent him. I'm like, "Yo, check this out!" Like. You can get like Wolverine Claw because we would be hanging out and I would just always go like this, like when we would be like talking, and everybody would always say this, like, "Why do you do Wolverine Claws all the?" And I would just be like, ask anybody here too in the office, those things that hold up the cards.
Yeah,
I put them on and I'm like, and I like wear them like they're Wolverine. Like I used to be obsessed with just like the claws coming out of my fists all the time. But we would just read, like, he had all the comics, so I would just read them all the time. You ever read Old Man Logan?
I haven't, no.
Oh,
I know most of the story to it, so I just never read it, but...
It's actually, like, it's probably my favorite story in any comic, even better than, like, I like it better than any Batman comic I've ever read. It's a book that, like, when I read it the first time, because I heard about it, and he got it, I sat down with it. I couldn't put it down. I just read through it cover to cover, and it is one of the greatest comic book stories I've ever read in my life. Old Man Logan is so worth reading. It's pretty sad.
Yeah,
it's a rough read, but it's the greatest Wolverine story that's ever been told. It's definitely the best that Marvel's ever, in my opinion, that they've ever gotten through. And of course, like, it's, and that's why, I gotta say too, nowadays they've totally done Wolverine dirty with all like the MCU and everything, and how and I understand too, like, Hugh Jackman's been doing it forever.
Right.
Like, we got Logan, which was awesome.
Yeah, no, I love that they were able to do such a long story with that character. I mean, that arc, he's in more movies than probably Iron Man was in. And even if it I don't have the numbers in front of me, but even if it is one less movie than Iron Man, he has a ton of screen time in every movie he's in because he's the star of most of the ones he's in, which is great.
In my opinion, he is the most underrated of Marvel, completely, and it's all because he's not in the MCU. Everyone talks about.
I'm sure we'll get an MCU version.
We will.
Soon.
But will it be as good as as Logan? Like, not for anything, but
probably. So we will have a hard time accepting the new one, yeah. But the younger fans,
I mean, I might be cool.
Are going to go right. I'm not saying that we're not going to be be cool with it. But you know how it is. It's always hard to like.
Everybody gives me a hard time because I'm so like whatever with the Marvel movies. I don't care. I love them every second of them because we lived in a time where a Marvel movie was not an idea that you would just. Comic book movies didn't just happen, and I know everybody's like, oh, so I'm so sick of comic book movies. Blah blah blah. It's like we'll come from a time when you didn't see comic book movies at all. I came from a time where Batman. You got a Batman movie once every 4 or 5 years or something. That was about it. You didn't, but the thing was, I liked Batman, of course, but I didn't like Batman as much as I loved the X-Men and all those other characters, and as much as I watched all those other characters, I do love Batman, but Spider-Man, Wolverine, I never thought I'd ever see them in theaters, and when I did, now it's like it blew my mind, and now it's like wow, this is crazy. But then all I ever hear is people complaining that you have Marvel movies every couple of years. It's like, what?
I felt like a kid going home from the theaters from seeing the first Spider-Man movie.
Oh my God, me too.
That one, even more so than the X-Men movie because his costume looked more like the comic than the X-Men did. I was so excited when that movie came out.
I still to this day get chills when I watch that movie at the end and everything. Like Spider-Man and X-Men 1 and 2, Spider-Man 1, 2, and I love the third Spider-Man movie. I really like it. The third X-Men movie, I'm a little bit like, because I feel like they were like, we're done making these. Like, let's just, like, I don't think they saw the future of what was going to happen.
No, they didn't.
And then I feel like when the whole MCU thing happened and, like, luckily, so that's the other thing, too. Iron Man was another superhero that I was super into, so thank God he got a good movie, because I was afraid that might be it. But I was also into the Iron Man show.
Okay.
The one from the 90s.
I never really saw that one. I don't know if I just hit the wrong age, because, like, I was in 3rd grade when the X-Men show came out, and I watched the Spider-Man show religiously, forever.
So Spider-Man...
So I don't know how I missed the Iron Man show.
It wasn't on Saturday mornings, and it wasn't on Fox, like
That's
Spider-Man
how it
and
was
X-Men
because I didn't have Fox.
Spider-Man and X-Men were on Fox on Saturday mornings, and this was on, like, something else on Sunday at like 9 a.m.
Oh, we would have been at church. Yeah, I missed that.
It was like the Marvel Power Hour or something, and it was Fantastic Four, which for years I hated the Fantastic Four with a passion because of the TV show.
Okay,
there's this awful episode. I need to tell the audience about this because I've never gotten a chance to talk about this before. There's an episode, and people for years didn't believe me that this was real until I bought the DVD collection and had to show my friends in the dorms. There's this episode. It's the episode where the Mole Man takes I think it's Rockefeller Center. It sinks it into the ground.
Okay.
And they're having this big benefit, and they go, "Oh, the Human Torch is going to come up and sing a song for us, everybody." And they start this song. And it's horrible. The song it's called Flame On. It's a rap song.
Okay.
It's the Human Torch. And it's so off sync. The animation is horrible. Because it's that, 90s. I believe it was Deke who did it too. It wasn't, I don't know if it was a Saban show. I think because, everybody had all these like everywhere. And maybe it was Saban. I think it might have been Saban. I think they had because they were friends with Avi Arad and all those guys. It's called Flame On. Just look up, like, on YouTube somewhere. Human Torch song, 94, Fantastic Four. It's real. I have the DVD set. It's not... What you're going to find is not a fake thing. It's so bad. It's this horrible song, and it made me cringe as a kid to the point where I hated the Fantastic Four for years. I just hated them. I couldn't watch anything. I didn't mind the movies that came out later, but...
I didn't mind those movies. They get a lot of crap.
Yeah.
But I didn't...
I watched them recently, and I like them.
They're not perfect, but I don't hate them.
They're fine.
I thought the people did a good job of playing
Michael
the characters.
Chiklis was a good... he was great as the Thing.
I like rubber suits.
Yeah.
I'd rather see a rubber suit than a CGI person.
I liked that they were kind of... It was a little bit more lighthearted.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot. I had a good... I still like those movies. Even the Silver Surfer one I think is fine. But... yeah, so that's the reason. The Iron Man cartoon was on Sunday at a weird time, and it was hosted by Stan Lee.
I did know that.
So that's why, like, when people were like, when I first saw X-Men, I was like, that's Stan Lee. Like, I saw his first cameo, I knew who he was because I used to see him every Sunday morning as a kid.
Yeah.
He would come in, he'd do the whole Excelsior, hey, true believers, blah, blah, blah. We're going to go, Iron Man's going to have a real rough time today or whatever. And he would introduce every single episode. And when I found out, like, oh, he created all these characters, like, wow, that's crazy. Like, this one guy.
Yeah.
Not really, but he is basically, like, one of the people who wrote, like,
Right.
I mean, the Fantastic Four, I believe,
Spider-Man,
Hulk, like all these characters, like, and other people came up with them too with him, but this was also too.
A lot of people molded them, and that's where he kind of hogs the credit, and he deserves credit for creating them. But like other people, like the X-Men, would not be popular if it wasn't for Chris Claremont coming back in and revitalizing
I mean, Jim Lee's
it,
designs and everything too. You know.
So back to the X-Men.
Yes.
A lot of the figures got made twice, or more times.
Oh yeah,
because they would redo the features. They would kind of super them up. We talked about Banshee off camera. Way down on the end, there's a Banshee figure has a whistle built into him.
He's pretty awful.
He really can't pose around.
No.
So I have another figure from later in the line where he has like soft goods connecting his arms and legs, so you can actually pose him around.
I know that one,
but he's in like a screaming pose, which looks terrible.
There were some ones that were really goofy ones, like you ever see like the Savage World figures later, or Savage Land, not Savage World, Savage Land Wolverine, where he just looks completely, he has no nose. He's like, his claws are like really thick and they look just like bones coming out of his hand, and he's like hunched over and he's like an animal and stuff like that. They made a lot of figures that were just a little bit off-putting, ToyBiz, especially later on in the lines. But I liked some of the bulkier ones. I had this really cool Wolverine, actually, not to go back to Wolverine, but he was in a karate suit and he had bone claws.
Oh, okay.
And they were plastic ones, but he was a little hunched over. Damn it, I wish I brought it with me because I have it at home. And it's a really cool figure, but they made some really cool ones. They also made some awful figures.
You were complaining about the Gambit earlier.
Yeah, I don't like that Gambit. I think he looks so skinny, and his jacket is like
so bad.
Yeah, it's just like.
But everyone loved Gambit. Like he was such a popular character because he was fairly new. Mm-hmm. He was in the cartoon. I was dying for that figure. But I would always take his jacket off, because you could play with him more without it.
Everybody always,
but he had the dumb collar still attached to his back of his neck.
You know, honestly, I never liked Gambit. Well, I don't mind him. I think he's whatever, but I just never.
I was
like
Gambit. Such a Gambit fanboy.
Yeah, I always played as him in the Sega game.
Okay,
because he was like I would usually go with him first. Because he had the stick and he was like easier, but I just never was like super into Gambit. I don't know why.
So years later, after I was done collecting these guys, I picked up one, a Gambit figure from later in the line who came with like light up accessories. It was one of the features, like the mutant powers would light up out of their hands, like he had the cards with energy. And that one had like a rubbery jacket and looked really cool. He was much beefier.
It's the one where it's like the sleeves are molded, but the jacket itself is that's a good one.
That one was really cool. So I loved having him in my collection. And that's kind of where I'm at right now with a lot of these collections that like G.I. Joe, I collect and keep everything.
Yeah.
But with stuff like my Marvel figures, a lot of them I've been going through recently and like, do I need both of these Gambits? Like, do I need both of those Storms? I've been trying to make some of these hard decisions to just like slim the collection a little bit. I know it'll expand again, but then at least there's room for that expansion.
I like these ones, but I do prefer the figures that came out like the next line later. Like the Cyclops, for instance, I like the Cyclops that's like from the show.
Yeah.
I think he just looks way cooler. I love this Bishop figure. That's not his gun though. It's a different gun.
I bought him at yard sales. I believe you that
he comes with one gun that's actually pretty cool, and it's just like looks like a cannon, and then he has another one that kind of folds. It's like a plasma gun.
Okay.
But I love the Bishop figure. I used to make him fight Cable all the time because even though they never really like. But I felt like they're both like future dudes with guns. I thought they were cool.
This Colossus, I bring him up in conversations a lot when people talk about the way they shade comics and what color are things. Because there's debates like even like the Batman costume. Mm-hmm. Is it blue or is it black, right? Like a lot of times there was that point in time where they would always put like this black circle on his face. Is that a shadow or is that the real color and the blue is a highlight?
Yeah.
They would always highlight Colossus's hair in blue, and somebody at Toy Biz was like, okay, so his hair's blue.
Yeah.
And it's like, no.
But it's
it should be black.
Yeah.
Right.
Can you name every one of these?
I think so.
I can easily.
So a couple of stories that I thought of as we were talking. One, you were talking about the Wolverine Claws.
Yep.
I used to have a couple of wristbands from when I played like Pee Wee football.
Yeah.
And I would stick pencils in them to be the claws.
I used to do that too. I used to do rubber bands and chopsticks.
Okay.
Actually. Yeah.
Same idea. The Iceman figure that's down there. Iceman was my favorite X-Men as a kid.
Okay.
The kid that from my elementary school class that got me into X-Men, he was obsessed with Wolverine, and so at recess we would play X-Men, and I would be Iceman, and he would be Wolverine. And I had that Iceman as a kid, and I used to put him in the freezer so the icicles would show up. I never realized though that you freeze his feet in that mold, and then he slides along the table.
I didn't thought about that.
I didn't realize that was what you were supposed to do with him as a kid. So I just would put him in the freezer and he would color change. But you were really supposed to freeze,
put a little
ice
water
block to his feet.
I always wondered why there was like a divot in it.
Yeah.
That's
but
funny.
I took him outside to play in the snow one time. And I guess from the change in temperature over and over again, his glue joint just like popped apart. And then I had this Iceman that anytime another X-Men figure would punch him, he would just shatter.
Yeah.
And I would just do that with him all the time.
Yeah.
Because that was a thing it did. So eventually I bought a new one because I love that figure, but that other one was broken.
The later Iceman figure, we were talking about it actually before, but the one that it's like it's one of the beefier kind of figures that they made later on, where everybody was every one of the X-Men was doing like steroids and was ripped like crazy. But like how this Havoc is, everybody was that way. They made that Iceman figure that was the blue like frosted look, and he came with the extra like fist and like
clip on.
Yeah. The only thing that was weird about that was he had this thing on his back that was just
ice spikes. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't understand what it was. It was like just a head thing would kind of pop up.
So I think it had to do within the comic at one point, like his mutant level went up and he was like an Omega level mutant or something like that, and he just had more bulk and ice to him.
Yeah, because they made one that was like this Iceman. Like it was like the actual like he had a face and everything, but then they made the Age of Apocalypse one where he has no face. Like he has eyes and his mouth is just that real 90s like kind of just, masked face, but it's like his skin at the same way. And that's when I actually too I used to have the full line of the Age of Apocalypse ones.
Okay.
I had Apocalypse, I had the which is funny because the Cyclops figure looked like me because he had like long hair and kind of like the goatee, but he had a scar.
Oh, okay.
Because it was like Wolverine had fought him in an Aegis cut, so part of his eye was missing, so he only had the one eye by this point. And
he really was a Cyclops.
Yeah, and Wolverine had the no hand.
Yep,
it was just the claws coming out of his wrist, pretty much. Yeah, and I had all of those ones, and I think Magneto was there too, and he had like long hair. And he was a little bit cooler looking, to be honest. It was like he de-aged pretty much. Like he looked like, I don't know, like
they just made him less
a rocker.
feeble.
Yeah, like they made, and he was also totally ripped. Like every action figure from this era, they made everybody super bulky looking.
It really is a good line.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they made so many characters, and they did so many variations. The only, like I said, which we've both talked about, the only bad thing was eventually it just became like Repaint City. Like how many times can we crank out these molds?
They also started trying to make them like expensive figures.
Yeah,
like I think
sets
I think they were trying to make them more like how McFarlane was kind of coming out with stuff.
And they knew there was a collector market for their toy.
And also too, not for anything, but like McFarlane Toys was killing it in the late 90s. Like they were above and beyond. Like they were what I wanted, even though the only problem with me was I was like, well, I can't play with any of these. They're all like, they started making them more articulated and less statue-like, but they would basically just like for instance, like there's a Nathan Gray figure, X-Man, and all it is basically just a slightly more articulated figure. He has like a ball joints in his shoulder. His hand is like this, so I guess he can do like psychic stuff. He has a fist, and his toes point. Like you can move his feet like that. But he came with this like psychic stand thing. And he was more expensive, but he was just a ToyBiz figure that came with this stand thing. So I bought him when it was at Toys R Us for $3, or it was like 3 for $10 or whatever. Like I wasn't gonna like And also too, by that point, I think what I was like mostly into was the when they made the Marvel versus Capcom and like X-Men versus Street Fighter, Marvel versus Capcom. Those figures, like seeing, that was actually another mind-blowing moment.
Yeah.
Was when, not only the video game of Street Fighter versus X-Men. That's something I remember when my friend told me that too. He was like, "Yeah, you hear X-Men versus Street Fighter," and I was like, "Bullshit!
No way.
Like, no way. That's not happening. You're lying." Like, kids would just make things up.
Yep.
Like, my dad works at Nintendo, blah, stuff like that.
Yeah,
That's what I totally thought it was until I went to an arcade, and like there it was. Like, holy crap! I'm seeing X-Men and Street Fighter characters. It was like I couldn't believe it.
The animation for a video game was just unreal.
I couldn't believe it. It was it was a cartoon. I was watching a cartoon in real life, like you were controlling a cartoon. And then when I saw the action figures and I wanted them so bad. I remember like begging my mom, and I was like I was probably like 11 or 12. And I'm like, "Mom, please." It's like it's Ryu and Magneto and Ken and Sabretooth, like, please, that's there's two of them. They're $13 each, but it's 4 figures. Like, Ma, it's like $26. Like, I'll do this. Like, because I was like, I knew that my thinking was, if I don't get these now, they're not going to be here by the time I save $26. That's $26 to me when I was 11.
It's a lot
in
of
1999 or 8 or maybe this was 97 actually. Now I think about it. That's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. That's more than I knew what to do.
Which is why Mom said no. Probably.
Yeah, my mom was like, nah, blah, blah. No, my mom's cool. Me and Mom were really cool, but no, it's like and I don't I'm not bad mouthing my mom too on these channels. My mom was a very cautious mom, and she wanted the best for her son. I'm her only son.
Yes.
And she doesn't want to corrupt my brain and turn me into one of those guys that 20 years later is on a podcast talking about action figures and playing video games all the time.
I think I lost interest in this line though eventually when I had all the core characters I could find. And all they were releasing was like weird variants and characters I had never heard of.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like eventually that line got so big and there were only so many versions of Wolverine and Cyclops they could put out. And as a kid spending kid money, I didn't really want to keep buying those main characters over and over again.
Yeah.
So like once I had Gambit and Wolverine and Cyclops, it eventually it was like I would keep looking for some characters. Like there wasn't a really good Jean Grey early on in that line.
No, it took a long time for there to be a good one.
And so like I never got a Jean Grey, and that would have maybe helped keep me in the line if they had put her out. And they always are worried about female figures in a boys' toy line.
Yeah.
Like they just don't sell as well.
Which drove me nuts because I'd be like, I always wanted a Rogue figure or like, and a better one also too. I always wanted ones that didn't swivel the hips like that weird, like that what are you going to do with that? Point. I want them to be able to throw a kick.
Yeah.
Give me a side kick at least or something like that.
It kind of kills me now, but I sold all of my ToyBiz X-Men's for like $1.50 a piece at a yard sale at that age of like middle school. I'm done with this. Bagged them up with their accessory because I was crazy careful with toys. I played with my toys all the time, but I rarely lost pieces.
Yeah, I played not for anything. This might be weird, but I played with action figures even through college.
Well, I mean,
like I literally
had a brief dip of like all I'm collecting is G.I. Joe and Star Wars.
Yeah.
But then it went back up.
When the 25th anniversity line and G.I. Joes came out, dude, when like my roommates wouldn't be in the dorm, I was like putting them up like all stuff like
I was stop motion animating
all over my stuff.
So I was literally playing with toys in my dorm also.
But I honestly never lost interest in these ones. But what happened was when I was leaving to go to college, this was 2006. I was finally going to college. I took a year off after high school to work.
Yeah.
But I ended up doing one of those things where, I was like, I just felt like, I was like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying in town. I'm just gonna buy video games and food and things like that. Like I didn't do anything with my money. So then finally I was going to the Art Institute. I was like, I'm going to do animation, all this stuff. I have almost no money because I quit my job. And I was a jerk about quitting my job at first because I ended up going back there on weekends. They were cool with me coming back.
Okay.
But I flat out was like, yeah, I'm not coming back. I'm going to college. Like I told them like flat out, I'm not doing this. I was working at Red Robin. And I needed some extra money because I was leaving to college. I had to pay for my car thing. I was using my mom's older car.
Okay.
So I was doing the payments on it, but I was like, Mom, I'm going to college. Like, I'm living in Philadelphia. Like, I don't need a car. I'm not going to be able to pay for this car, so it's going to have to just stay here. And she was like, well, you're going to keep paying the car payments. And I'm like, oh, crap. So I had to pay them for like a few months afterwards because I would use the car on the weekends or whatever. Yeah. But I needed money, and I had a thing of figures about this long. One of those like ones that's only like about that. But it was all my X-Men figures. I also had my Marvel vs. Capcom, the full group. And that was ToyBiz also. I had everybody. I had Strider. I had Captain Commando, Mega Man, Morgan, all of those. I also had the X-Men vs. Street Fighter. I also had Resident Evil, which in my office I have like the full thing of Resident Evil figures now, but I sold all those for like something dumb. It was like, I think a guy came by and was like, I'll give you $100 for that whole tub. And I was like, $100? Yeah. And I sold it. Mm-hmm. And I never realized that those figures were going to be so hard to get later, you know, because everybody always tells you like, you you better keep those in the packaging. They're going to be worth something later. They're going to be worth. And these figures were like, you found them a dime a dozen for a minute.
Some of these X-Men guys are so easy to find. Some of them are hard.
I remember the first convention I went to, actually after I graduated college, I went to Wizard World, and a guy was selling packaged ToyBiz figures, $5. I was like, that's how much they were when they came out, and this is 2010 now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I ended up buying a whole bunch. I've never really like, these were actually my favorite line of action figures because they went with almost everything. You could have a Kenner Batman, you could have the Jurassic Park full line of people, and be as regular people or whatever.
They're a nice scale.
They all work together. You can even have things, other things like cops versus crooks or whatever, Any of these figures go with the X-Men. They were, I feel like they were the first, like, because, you could have G.I. Joe, but you can't have G.I. Joe hanging out with, Optimus Prime is like a truck. So it's like a G.I. It doesn't make sense. Or the Ninja Turtles, or it's like a weird size, And also, Ninja Turtles are really hard to go with other figures. Certain figures can. The X-Men went with everything, and that's what I loved about them, is that you can also make them anyone you want. They don't have to be like... I used to do a lot of things where I made my own characters out of figures I had and make my own weird worlds and universes and all these things. Like, I was like a real, like, I didn't have, like, a whole, like, it wasn't that I didn't have friends, it's just that I preferred to do that than go out places.
Gotcha.
I wasn't cool. I'm still not. I would still play with action figures.
So I had a few of these that managed to survive me selling most of them. I've picked up a few along the way. Like, I saw the carded Wolverine and the carded Archangel. I was like, I gotta get them. And then I was at a yard sale in a neighborhood where one of my childhood best friends grew up, and they had like a community yard sale, and one of the guys had a table out in his yard. The only stuff he was selling, I think, were ToyBiz X-Men, and they were like $1 a piece, and I just like was like, Space Wolverine, Iceman, the Silver Storm, yep. And then shortly after that, the local comic store had a $5 like carded figure sale, and it was like Kenner Aliens and some of these X-Men guys.
Oh, those were
and I
great,
picked
too.
up a bunch of random ones.
Kenner Aliens too go perfectly with all of these. Like, that's the thing. I think that was the 6-inch whatever it is scale is the best.
It's a good. I mean, yeah, these guys were a nice size for a lot of the other toys in that era, for sure.
No, I love these. They're easily my favorite. One of my favorite lines of action figure. This right here was the first ever. I saved money. I saved my lines, and I bought this Wolverine, and that was what kind of changed me after that. I mean, I was like 5 or 6. I think I was in kindergarten when I first got that figure.
Somebody complained recently on an episode that we don't demonstrate anything, and I said, "Well, it is a podcast, but we gotta do the little snick here just for everyone." Here we go. He's got his claws in.
Nice.
Snicked. I mean, it makes the sound. It's such a great action feature.
Put the ring on.
I don't even know if it fits.
No, it fit me when I was like 6 years old.
His mask.
Yeah, maybe a pinky,
ring.
barely. Yeah. You got Sinister. Does he light
Nobody
up still?
lights up anymore.
No,
all their
I was going to say
that
was like really short. Like they were like, no kid's going to have this for however many
none
years.
of them are like changeable. Like they didn't put little doors with a screwdriver on the back of them.
The later Cyclops did. He used watch batteries. Yeah,
gotcha.
And then you have the Xavier with his little hidden Second Amendment Xavier with his guns that he has, which is weird. He has two of them, but he only has one hand that can hold them.
Magneto had his little
I always
magnetic junk that stuck to him.
Yep. Or as everyone's parents called him, Magneto.
Magneto.
You went Magneto?
I did like that his helmet came off.
Yeah.
His cape was never quite good enough for me, though.
Yeah, it was one of those fabric. I never liked fabric capes.
So I'm a big fan of clothy capes. That's like an old SEO toy review reference. I like clothy capes, but that one's just too small. Look at it on his back here.
It is weird, yeah.
It's exactly as wide as his body.
It's like a bath towel.
It has to come over his shoulders.
Yeah. Oh, and I have the... Hello? It's an old Wolverine phone. Actually, Justin gave me this. He was getting rid of it.
I love how it has like the chromed claws and everything.
Yeah, I like that it's Wolverine crouched. Like, it's such an awkward position for him to be in. Like, he's
kneeling.
He's like... Yeah, it's like so weird. And he's just kneeling up against this giant X-Men thing. Like, it's such a bizarrely designed phone. And he's holding the phone. Like, he's in agony.
Yeah, why isn't he just standing holding the phone?
I don't know.
All right, well, thanks for hanging on the pegs with us. Kieran, thanks for coming by and checking out the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me once again.
This has been
awesome.
awesome.
Great time.
All right, guys, we'll see you next time.
All right, see ya.